right, welcome back, everybody. So the early birds get more information. I wish I had a prize. I actually don't. But thank you for coming back. Did everybody have a good lunch? Food was great. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you about the websites. I had a lot of conversation with people, and I talked with David Stone, who's our Vice President for Communications, and he mentioned a few things to me that I thought were interesting. Write this down if and it may be in your materials, columbia.edu. To go straight to the Columbia Alumni Association website, it's alumni.columbia.edu. You also can get to that site on columbia.edu by going to that site and clicking on alumni. And then there are lots of other things, the things that we've been talking about today, Manhattanville, for example, some of the community initiatives. There's a section on the website on columbia.edu, Columbia in New York. If you click that on and you navigate a little bit, you'll find hundreds of local New York initiatives, places where the university is involved. So please take a look at that. And David has also promised me that after this conference that we will send you a list of links, some of the things that we've been talking about, so that you'll be able to click on, because we don't want to lose the excitement and the enthusiasm and feeling. And I know sometimes you have to give folks stuff because you may not think about clicking that on. I also, just in my walking around today, you know that we're being videotaped, and there's going to be something on the website. And Joe Turner Lynn, and I don't know if Joe may be shooting and maybe not able to raise his hand, but he's Columbia College 96 and School of the Arts of 04, and he has been videoing this. He says he's going to have about 44 hours of video at the end of it that'll turn into several small short pieces. And I said, where else have you been filming? He said, well, Sundance. Did you know Columbia has an annual party at Sundance? This year there were 25 films done either by students, faculty, or alumni. And he also was at Art Basel. So, I mean, Columbia's everywhere. And some of you may have been in New York last fall when we had the Leaders Assembly, a fabulous event at Lincoln Center, and lots of conversations on campus. So there are all kinds of things going on. Again, columbia.edu will help you find those things. Now, I also wanted to just, as we bring Dean Moody-Adams out, she's going to be doing a panel on students. And I mentioned to you earlier today that I had read a month's worth of the Columbia Spectator. They sort of pile up, and then I get a chance to read them. But here are some of the things that I learned. A record number of women students rushed sororities this year. That wasn't happening when I was there. I read the series of ROTC forums, and you can go to the Columbia Spectator website and read those things. So questions that you may have had about the process of the ROTC decision, you can find there. For Washington people, this is important. A Five Guys is coming to the neighborhood at Columbia at 111th and Broadway. Students are worried about hooking up, whether they are in the It's Complicated category on Facebook, or whether they're writing Spectator columns about their weekend dates with what I think is way too much information. Students praise the commencement speaker, and students criticize the commencement speaker. So as President Bollinger said earlier today, everything is debated on campus. So you're going to hear lots of really more important things from the panel who's coming up. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dean Michelle Moody-Adams, who is Dean of Columbia College and Henry L. and Lucy G. Moses Professor. She is also Vice President for Undergraduate Education. Before coming to Columbia, Dean Moody-Adams was Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education at Cornell, as well as a Professor of Philosophy and Director and Hutchinson Professor in Cornell's program on Ethics and Public Life. She did her undergraduate degree at Wellesley College, a second BA at Oxford University, and received her MA and PhD in philosophy from Harvard University. She is not just an administrator, but a much-loved teacher. Dean Michelle Moody-Adams.
Thank you so much, Adelia. I'm delighted to be back with you again this afternoon. So we're here to celebrate Columbia's leadership in the world, Part of that leadership is a function of what the institution does in New York City, and Morningside Heights, and Washington Heights, and soon in Manhattanville. Part of it is what our alumni accomplish, and we heard from several of our really distinguished alums this morning. And the third part is what our current students are accomplishing and experiencing. And I have to say, you are in for a real treat this afternoon. With us are 3 of our most accomplished current students who are about to leave Columbia at the end of this academic year. So we're excited to have the chance to sort of learn a bit from them about what they'll take with them as they go out into the world to become leaders in the world as well. And the 3 students are Laura Kelley on the far end, who is 2011 in public health. She will complete her MPH degree in 2011, May, in socio-medical sciences and global health with a concentration on sexual and reproductive health and gender issues. She received her BA in health policy and anthropology at Rice University in 2008. And she will be a Rotary International ambassadorial scholar to Tanzania, visiting research fellow at Muhimbili University, and she'll study contraception and adolescent issues. Next to me is Sarah Kahn, CC, class of 2011. She's a senior, that is, at the college. She's an interdisciplinary major in economics and political science, and she also has a concentration in sustainable development, which we heard about earlier this morning. She is an undergraduate fellow at the Institute for Social and Economic Research and Policy, and she's also editor of the Undergraduate Journal of South Asian Studies. And in the middle is Tao Tan, who is class of 2007, Columbia College, and also business school, class of 2011, so another double Columbian. He's about to complete an MBA in May of 2011 with a focus on finance. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and History from Columbia College, that was 2007, and he has been serving as student body chair of the University Senate. And he'll be going when he leaves Columbia to join the Bank of America Merrill Lynch in New York City. So welcome to all of you. We're delighted to be able to share some time with you today. And I thought I would start by asking each of you to reflect a little on what you've learned or done at Columbia that you think has prepared you to lead in the world. Let me start with Sarah.
Thank you, Dean Adams. I think I would start first and foremost with my experiences with the core curriculum, because that really has been the cornerstone of my undergraduate experience at Columbia. I think the class Contemporary Civilization in particular was very inspiring for me, and it developed in me a love for political philosophy, and I'm actually hoping to continue studying political science, and I'll be back at Columbia in the fall to start my PhD in the political science department, and I think it was contemporary civilization that sparked that interest in me. And I also think that one of the most important things about Columbia, which is its diverse student body, is reflected really well in the core curriculum classes. All core curriculum classes are small and discussion-based, and it's very interesting to see the different perspectives that students can bring to the table about one text or one piece of art or one piece of music. And the conversations that I've had in these classes have been extremely valuable to me, and I think it's the best taste of Columbia that you can get is by sitting in on one of these core curriculum classes. Second of all, I would say would be the opportunities for research that I've had at Columbia during my undergraduate career. And as an undergraduate fellow at the Institute for Social and Economic Research and Policy, I've had the chance to work with a professor of sociology on her project on immigration and wages, and I'm now developing my own independent study project to study taxi drivers and their wages and the barriers to entry in that profession in New York City, so I'm very excited about that. And I think last of all, I would like to speak about the way that community engagement has been tied in with my classes at Columbia. And two instances of this in particular are the current Sustainable Development Workshop that I'm taking, which is a capstone workshop for the concentration in sustainable development. And as part of this workshop, the Sustainable Development concentrators are developing a curriculum on climate change for New York City urban park rangers to teach to students who come to New York City parks. And it's a very exciting opportunity to get involved in an educational endeavor and also have a chance to see New York's urban parks, which I hadn't had a chance to visit most of them before this class. And last semester, I took a seminar in human rights, and one of the parts of that seminar was to volunteer with the International Rescue Committee and work with the refugee and asylee population of New York City. So I think the exposure to the community around me that Columbia has provided through the classes in a very structured way actually has been essential to my education.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Tao, you want to tell us a bit about your leadership experiences?
Thank you, Dean Moody-Adams. Well, I would say that the most important thing I would take away from Columbia that would inform my leadership going into the future is absolute openness to different points of views, different ideas, etc. At Columbia College, for example, I think it's pretty clear that I believe in capitalism. But in the core curriculum, I was forced to, I gladly read Marx. And had lively discussions with just as committed Marxists. And in the business school right now, for example, where finance is a predominant theme in the business school education, nonetheless, I'm in class with people from nonprofit backgrounds, from government backgrounds, from general management and manufacturing backgrounds. So what I would say that all these things have done for me, it's given me an opportunity to appreciate different views, and specifically in the field I will go into, finance after graduation. How that applies is this. I've become very cognizant of the philosophical view that the purpose of finance may not be, the purpose of finance may be to facilitate, to develop, to catalyze, to bring about the development of industry. And sometime in the last 20 or so years, finance became an industry in and of itself. And there are many who say that the mess that we are digging ourselves out of right now may be linked to that view. So as I go forward into the world as a banker, these are the views that an education at Columbia, in both Columbia College and Columbia Business School, have opened me up to. And they will form part of my decisions and certainly inform whatever leadership positions I'll be fortunate enough to take in the future accordingly.
That's great. Thank you so much. Laura, tell us a bit about your experiences.
Sure. One thing that's been really neat at Mailman is the interdisciplinary focus, which I think is so important in public health because not only are you applying research from multiple disciplines, but also working with stakeholders who come from all different fields. And in particular, in the socio-medical sciences department, there's a really rigorous application of social theory to identify the processes that shape vulnerability to health. And that's really given me a strong technical and contextual background for working abroad, especially with my background in sexual and reproductive health. And also, I've participated in some student leadership opportunities. There's been leadership training at the American Public Health Association. I've had an opportunity to present a poster there, as well as travel to present at a conference in France at University of Public Health in Rennes that Columbia recently signed a partnership with, which was a really neat experience to collaborate with professionals in my field that come from a country where the context of how healthcare is provided is extremely different. And also, like Sarah, there's been an opportunity to interact with the community, the Dominican community in Washington Heights, where Mailman is located. And last spring break, a student group actually took a trip to Dominican Republic to do nutrition work, which was really interesting because it was one small component of a partnership between Mailman, the Dominican community in Washington Heights, and the Dominican Republic, which has several research projects that Columbia spearheads and takes forward with collaboration with partners in the Dominican Republic, but also students from the DR are coming to Mailman and to the Columbia Medical Center to study. So getting to be part of that community was really neat.
That's great. Thank you. One theme that ran through a lot of what we heard this morning was the presence that the institution has, as well as many of our projects and plans on the global stage. And I wonder if any of the panelists today would tell us about international experiences they've had. Would you mind if I came back to you first?
Yeah, sure. One really unique part of the Global Health Program at Mailman, and they are the only program in the country that offers this, is a 6-month international practicum, which I completed in Senegal. So I was living in Dakar for 6 months, working at the local partner of an international organization that focuses on family planning. And Senegal has an extremely high unmet need for contraception and a high rate of maternal mortality, so it was very interesting work. And in particular, I was working on an adolescent sexual health program, which in terms of the social changes that are happening in a lot of urban centers of developing countries, adolescence, education, health issues are really at the crux of that. So it was an incredible experience, and not only did I get to have it, but I came back this semester with 30 classmates who had been in Cambodia, Tanzania, Uzbekistan, and got to talk to them about their cross-cultural experiences. It was really unique.
That's great. You make me want to be a student again. Tao, tell us a bit about your international experience.
Sure. One of my greatest regrets in Columbia College is I never studied abroad. But this past winter, with Columbia Business School, with 20 of my classmates, I went on a program which at the business school is known as the Chazen International Study Tour. Now that works is it takes about 20 students and it puts them in another country where they meet with government officials and business leaders and go visit companies during the day and do other stuff at night. But that was a trip. And the trip I went on was to Cairo and to Dubai. And this is around mid-January. I will remember this for the rest of my life. We went to go visit the now former Deputy Minister of Finance, who is a SIPO alum, and a member of my group raised his hand and said, Mr. Minister, in Egypt you have 700,000 new college graduates a year, and job creation is a problem. And what is your views to this? How can Egypt address this? And the minister looked very ministerial, and he said, "You are correct. This is a problem. However, this is mid-January. I do not believe this will lead to political instability."
Oh, wow. You had a front row seat to history there. That's amazing. So Sarah, tell us a bit about your international experience.
Sure. So I first stepped onto Columbia's campus about 3.5 years ago, coming straight from Islamabad, Pakistan. So the past few years have been like an extended study abroad for me, but I haven't actually gone away from Columbia to study abroad at a third destination, but I did do a very exciting summer program through the Columbia Center for Career Education in the summer of 2009. And this was a program in collaboration with the Scottish government. It's called the Encouraging Dynamic Global Entrepreneurs Program. And a cohort of 16 Columbia students partnered with students from the University of Glasgow, and we provided consulting services to small businesses in Glasgow, Scotland. And it was really interesting to see not only the different work culture, but to also interact with young entrepreneurs in Scotland. And we also had the opportunity to create and present our own small business plans. So my cohort, my group and I focused on a business plan for a children's literacy center in Glasgow. So it was a social entrepreneurship program, and it was a great experience for me.
It's wonderful. So Tao, I want to ask you to start us off on the topic of how your activity on the campus has allowed you to engage other students as a leader and in leadership opportunities.
Sure. Thank you, Dean Moody-Adams. Well, as Dean Moody-Adams mentioned, one of the roles that I take on is the student body chair of the University Senate, which I'm sure you all know yesterday voted to, make sure I get this correct, endorse the president to begin negotiations on the return of ROTC.
Right.
All right. And there are challenges and there are opportunities in a body like that. In the Senate, it's the only body at Columbia where every single student from every single school, and there are 19 constituent and affiliated schools of Columbia, are represented. So in the committee that I chair, known as the Student Affairs Committee, you have students from 19 wildly different schools coming together in one room. And a key challenge is always, how do you get them interested in one issue? What does a Columbia College student have in common with a student from the College of Dental Medicine? It's a good question. And what we found in the past year is that there are some issues of such importance and such impact to the institution that properly leveraged, this group of students, which is unique at Columbia, can be a tremendous resource. And over the past few months, we've conducted a process to investigate ROTC, public hearings, email submissions, a student body survey that would not have been possible except for the gathering of so many minds from so many different backgrounds in one room. And I'm very proud of this, by the way. It's that the result that we've pulled off is the most public, the most publicized, the most open, and one of the most transparent inquiries on ROTC of any major university in this country. That is a reflection of what student leadership can do.
That's excellent, thank you. Laura, can you tell us a little bit about your engaging of other students?
Yeah, sure. While I've been at Mailman, I've been president of the Global Health Forum. And actually, Jean-Ezra Young preceded me in that position, and he's attending today, which was really neat to connect. And that gave us the opportunity to connect with Mailman alums and also professionals in New York and bring them to the campus, which is at 168th Street, so it's no small task, to tell students about what they're doing, since much of public health is so applied and we're busy in school, we don't always get a chance to see the full breadth of what professionals in our field are working on. So specifically, we implemented a thematic framework. Last year we did health and human rights. We brought in a lot of people from Human Rights Watch and working with George Rupp at the International Rescue Committee to speak. And I also served as a board member on the Columbia Partnership for International Development, which has students across all of the graduate schools that have a stake in international development, including the business school, SEPA, social work, teachers college, Mailman, and that also was really neat to collaborate across disciplines and find an issue like climate change. What are the perspectives that students are bringing? What interests them? What can we collaborate on to draw the rest of the student body in? I have to say, being involved in extracurricular activities at Columbia has really made me sharpen my skills because there's a lot to do in New York, and if you want people to come, you've got to put on some great programming to draw them in. So
that's very true. Thank you. Sarah, tell us a bit about your activity engaging other students.
Sure. I think one of the unique opportunities I've had at Columbia is to engage with prospective students through my work for the undergraduate recruitment committee, and at the moment I serve as a senior interviewer for the recruitment committee, so I'm able to speak to some of the extremely smart and talented high schoolers who apply to Columbia, and I had the unique opportunity of interviewing students who have been shortlisted for the National Opportunity Program, which brings in students that have been historically underrepresented in Columbia's student body, as well as first-generation college students to Columbia, and it's a great treat for me to be able to talk about my experiences to these students and tell them a little bit more about Columbia. And they're really a very diverse set of students. So you have students who know absolutely everything about Columbia and more statistics and facts than perhaps any of us know. And then you have students who have never heard of the core curriculum, and then you tell them a little bit about it, and they're genuinely eager and excited. So it's very exciting to be able to do that for the recruit students. And another thing that I do is serve as an editor on the board of the Columbia Undergraduate Journal for South Asian Studies. I was also a founding member of the journal. It's a young publication, and we just managed to print our issues for the first time this semester, and that's very exciting. Previous to this, we were a web-only journal. And I think one of the great challenges with being part of a publication is getting readership and engaging students on campus to be interested in the issues that the journal reflects. And I think one of the things that Laura spoke about, really having interesting programming to accompany even a publication, is really important. So this semester we're working on hopefully getting some speaker events to talk about some of the issues that have been published in our current volume. So we're hoping to get that going.
That's wonderful. One of the things that's so important about the work that Sarah does on the undergraduate recruitment committee is help us manage those 34,000 students who come in some way, shape, or form to express their interest in applying to Columbia. We, as you heard, had a 6.4% selectivity rate. So we keep you busy on the tours and so forth. Before we open it up to questions from the audience, I wanted to give our panelists a chance to answer one last question that really reflects on both what they'll take away from Columbia and what they would like to see incoming students who will study in the same programs experience while they're here. So I'll start this time maybe with Sarah.
I think all my life, the most important thing about any place for me has been the people, and it's always the people that make the place. And that's been especially true for my experience at Columbia, because I've had the chance to meet people from all over the world, whether it be through classes or extracurricular activities or just living across the hall. And I think that network of people is something that I'll really take away, and those connections are something that I hope to maintain, and I think they're going to be absolutely crucial with my long-term plans. I'm going back to graduate school in the fall, but my long-term goal is to go back to Pakistan and establish a policy center of sorts that engages with academics both in Pakistan and scholars outside of Pakistan writing about or researching Pakistan. And I think that the connections that I've made with students and faculty members at Columbia and the connections I hope to make in the graduate program will be absolutely essential to this project. Another thing I hope to take from Columbia is just the spirit of civic engagement with the community and with the outside world. And I think that Columbia really incorporates the spirit along with the classes and academics that go on. And I've had a chance to step out into New York City as part of my classes, which I think is really, really unique. And I'm currently volunteering as a college mentor for high school students, and twice a week I go up to 130th in Amsterdam and teach a social studies class, a curriculum on civic engagement. And I think it's really, really important to have that spirit being cultivated not just at the college level at Columbia, but very early on among middle schoolers and high schoolers. The high schoolers I teach right now have decided to take up trees and as their focus issue for this semester, and they're going to start a community garden in their school. So I'm really, really excited about that, and I hope to continue being involved in such initiatives.
That's great, thank you.
Well, what I take away from Columbia is, without a doubt, a passionate, unquenchable love for learning. I think the one thing you take at Columbia in any of its schools is that whatever you find, whatever you think you know, you want to know a little more. And that's been a huge benefit. And what I'd like future classes to see at Columbia, that's very easy. The one thing I would like future classes to experience at Columbia University is to see the men's football team, my beloved Lions, as they have before, win the Rose Bowl again.
So Laura?
Great. Yeah, I really want to echo what Sarah said about the people. When I came to Mailman, I thought I would get a professional network in New York, but I really have developed one around the world and developed skills in cross-cultural fluency that have been really amazing. And I've also been really inspired by the faculty and the students at Mailman to engage with the community wherever I may be. And I live in Brooklyn right now, and I'm volunteering with a group that is doing programming to decrease HIV among adolescents of color, among which the rate of HIV is actually double that of Senegal. When I learned that, I couldn't believe it. Wow. And yeah, I've just been really inspired to change the way that healthcare is delivered around the world to make sure that marginalized populations have access to appropriate technologies. And for incoming students, I think I would tell them to use their alumni, because it's easy to get caught up in school, caught up in learning. But a few times I've looked at the alumni directory and contacted some people to talk to them about what they do, and it's been incredibly helpful, and everyone that I've gotten in touch with has been very receptive. So I would encourage students to take advantage of that.
That's a wonderful message. So I think we have a few minutes now to give the audience a chance to ask these extraordinary students, outstanding Columbians, a few questions. I hope we can get the mics available to people who have questions.
Question for Ms. Kahn, from this side of the world, it seems as if the position of women in Pakistan just deteriorates, you know, fairly much. When you think of going back home, is this a concern of yours? Is this something you do need to think and worry about, or is it just something which is over-exaggerated here in this country?
Thank you. I think that it's absolutely a huge concern for me. And before I came to Columbia, I was part of an organization that did advocacy for equal rights for women. And we were able to achieve a legislative change in the Hudud ordinances, which were extremely discriminatory for women. So I think that there are problems, but there's great space and great need for change, and that's one of my driving forces for going back to Pakistan and hopefully helping see some of that change happens. And I think that one of my greatest inspirations for going back is my mother, who has been a professor at a public university in Pakistan for 25 years, and she's currently the only female in the economics department at that university. So she's been a very strong presence in my life, and I think that that really inspires me and tells me that, well, if she can do it, then so can I.
That's great. That's great. I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Greg Krasowski, Columbia College of 91. This is a question to the entire panel, as well to our dean. One of the compelling reasons that many people want to go to Columbia and go to Columbia is the fact that it's in New York. New York being the business and the financial center of our country. But couldn't we do more to leverage that in terms of the internship opportunities, especially for undergraduate students? I'm sure that within the business schools and the School of Public Health, they probably have a very robust program in terms of summer internships. But when I was at Columbia College, back then in the day, we really didn't have a formal internship program that could have been set up by career services or something like that. And I think that would work to a tremendous advantage. Has the situation changed now, Sarah, when you look at your fellow classmates and things like that?
Sure. Well, I think that the Center for Career Education does a wonderful job of connecting students with internship opportunities, both in New York and also around the world. And New York is wonderful for anyone who wants to go into just about any sector, and my interest in policy led me to pursue an internship with a nonprofit in New York City last semester, and because of the proximity to the United Nations, there's a lot of opportunity for engaging with different agencies of the UN through internships, and my summer internship was unpaid, which was a huge problem because I was going to be living in New York. So through Columbia, I was able to apply for the Edwin Robbins Fellowship for Public Service, and this allowed me to have a small stipend. I was able to live in New York and feed myself and do the unpaid internship. So thanks to Columbia, I was able to stay there for the summer.
That's great.
I would also say that a couple weeks ago, I had the good fortune to attend an event with Dean Moody-Adams called the College to Career event. And what this is, it's a new initiative on behalf of the Center for Career Education that brings together recent and not so recent, is that a nice way of putting it?
Yes, that's
okay, of Columbia College alums with the current generation of Columbia students. They group them by their major, by their concentration, and I saw this wonderful interaction going on between, the question my father once asked me is, what are you going to do with a history degree? Well, I wish he went with me to that event because there was a bunch of history majors over here doing all sorts of interesting things. And I think the connections that are being set up between students and alumni, particularly, sir, in your question of internships and job opportunities, is something to be very proud of.
Great, thank you. We have time for one very quick question and then a concise answer.
Thank you. Professor Diane M. Falk, Washington, D.C. A quick question for Ms. Kahn. Would you repeat again the name of your journal? And a more important question for Ms. Tan. Has abstinence-based awareness programs found a place in any of the AIDS prevention concern programs?
The name of the journal is the Columbia Undergraduate Journal for South Asian Studies.
Thank you.
Currently, No, not that I know of, but during the period for which USAID funding for programs that had to do with abortion was revoked, there were some organizations that accepted money from USAID and changed the way that they did their programming. Some had adequate funding that they were able to operate on their own. One notable example is Marie Stopes. But I would say that what we've seen both from the literature and from my personal experience is that programs that deal comprehensively with people's health needs help them manage their health best. And in places such as Senegal or Tanzania, both of where I've done some research, we see that in situations where adolescents are stigmatized and are not able to attend reproductive health clinics, that there are very high rates of unsafe clandestine abortions among teenage girls that get them sick. Sometimes the result would be a hysterectomy, death, or even miss school for 6 months and don't end up going back. So I think the evidence shows that comprehensive programming achieves the best health results among a lot of metrics.
Including abstinence-based awareness, promotions.
Yes,
especially
and
for
thank
young
you so-
people.
Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you so much.
Yeah,
I hope
Appreciate
so.
it. And please join me in thanking these outstanding Colombians for their insights and observations. Thank you all so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Dean Moody-Adams. And so now I have another word to add to my list: excited, proud, and impressive. They were fabulous. And one thing that stuck out for me when Laura said cross-cultural fluency. I mean, there's so much of what we're hearing today about what's going on campus, what's happening with students, some of the new initiatives, that we really are a global university.